Okay, everyone, I'm going to try. I don't know if. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, let's try it. Everything's a go. So 1,765 days. This is part two. Part two, it seemed like I was having some technical difficulties, but because this is so important, we can never give up. We can never give up, and we have to absolutely go on every day to give you the news that we are cooperating with hard facts, um, mountains of evidence. Yes, some of it is circumstantial, some of it is irregularities, like the fact that they never contacted us. They never contacted us, the military, and when we called them to find out about our son, Richard Halliday, the stellar soldier, the distinguished honor graduate of basic training and AIT, the whistleblower for the cartel-tied criminal trafficking along the El Paso border. You know, they were like, oh, you know, we took him off the rolls. We're taking him off the rolls, and putting us in jurisdiction limbo land, without any help at all. And so we had to take to social media. Um, never thought I'd have to do that, but we had to take to social media, and I wasn't that good. My daughter was good. Richard's sister put out a a post on Instagram. It got like 50,000 shares or something like that. And so we got a call from the army saying, "Oh yeah, your son, we better put him back on the rolls. We better put him back on the rolls." So you see, you know what that proves is that we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, right? And we cannot just assume that our agencies and our institutions are going to do the right thing, that they are going to do their duty, that they are going to defend the Constitution. It is the people, government by the people, for the people, and of the people, that have to defend the Constitution, that have to defend the people and our most valuable assets, our sons and daughters that sign up, and it's very vulnerable. It's a very, anyone that has served in the military, in our military, knows what a vulnerable situation that is when you sign on the line. You are no longer your own. You cannot just live wherever you want to live. Richard had to live in the barracks, and they absolutely, his leadership, the NCOs and the generals who allowed it, and the director of emergency services that allowed this absolute breach in security, had to live in a barracks that was, as they said, um, just flush with illegal weapons, or unauthorized weapons, and of course the substances, the illegal substances, and bringing in very young girls. Um, of course, it's in the news of a 14-year-old girl living in the Fort Bliss barracks for 4 months, being used and abused, sold while she was in there, sold out, used and abused for 4 months. And of course, we received many witness testimonies to how they film it all. They film it all, and they make money off of the films, and they use it to compromise the soldiers. So if you get too much of the adult beverage in you, and especially if you're like 20 instead of 21, and they want to retaliate against you, they can. If they bring you young beautiful girls, or just young girls, and you don't even know how old they are, you didn't ask how old they are, um, and you sure didn't stand 6 feet apart. Um, and then the culture is like a sex culture, a sex cult culture, and they absolutely set up our soldiers in the barracks on Fort Bliss, that has so many SOPs that are supposed to secure uh, our soldiers, our most valuable assets, are young. These are 17 to 25 at the most, and they are full of vim and vigor. Full of vim and vigor. They have to be watched. They have to be disciplined. They have to be, uh, you know, uh, someone has to have their six, right? Someone has to have their six so that they can be, um, of course, a very disciplined force, um, force to deal with anywhere if there's an emergency at any time for national security. And that's not what was happening. They were absolutely weakening our soldiers by compromising them, filling their head with nonsense that would absolutely lead into adulthood with the nonsense. And there was, of course, um, the evil part of it. You had hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked. And they would film all this. They would film it all. And can you imagine if foreign assets got a hold of all of these films, which they did? And it was so detrimental to our national security. And Richard was living in that, and he was not compromised. We're almost 5 years in, and the retaliation that we have received, the smearing that Richard has received, amounted to nothing, to absolutely nothing. They have no hard evidence at all. But on the other hand, we have all kinds of hard evidence. From Ruggiero, the first sergeant, to his wife, Gema Xóchitl, to Leilani Hart, hard evidence, even a confession of the worst kind of crimes against children. And she's a mother of Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart, and his activities and his record, and and of course Jonathan Ambrose, and um, you know into Danae Katzen, into the cartel world with Arturo Alba, being related to the Texas Ranger that was put on our case, being related to Nidal Baem, the impersonator, the fake, the fraudster, FBI, but connected to Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado of the G3 32nd ADCOM Richard's command, and the op ords, um, we have all the hard evidence, um, with the seal on the door of the arms room, with the whistleblower reports, with the autopsies, with the numbers that we traced, with um, just on and on and on. Really a robust, my neighbor called it a robust mountain of evidence. Um, and it's absolutely true. And that's why we have the Department of Defense designating and classifying Richard's death as in the line of duty, which absolutely, there's only, with all the evidence, with all the other paperwork that we have, he was murdered in the line of duty on Fort Bliss. And we've backed that up over and over and over again. And is there still false narratives out there? Um, like disgraced Bob Moore in El Paso Matters, who absolutely kept the Mayela Crucius marriage from the Walmart case, kept that secret. I mean, so El Paso Matters cannot be trusted. We have evidence that shows that they're up to no good, that They were a party to Richard's case, a party to the Walmart case, and that they can't even be reporting on it without disclosing those facts, and the connections using the prime suspects in the murder case of our son to form false narratives, to discredit, falsely discredit the truth. You see, that's what they do. They play a psyop. They play a psyop and they use a lot of money because they have the criminal trafficking money behind them, right? They have the contract money behind them, because we have showed their connection with the Mexican cartel. But what really is important to know is that the Mexican cartel are not autonomous. They're not autonomous. They are caught in the web of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. That's that's not us. That's not us saying so. That is, um, why do you think that Marco Rubio, in the Trump's administration, is revoking the visas from Chinese students, from those that are here, because of what is going on with the CCP, and the threat that they have positioned themselves in against the United States of America. Okay, so they have become, by their own doing, a threat if they're involved in criminal trafficking with our weapons, with our ammunition, with substances like that pink cocaine, the pink crack, right? That is made in a lab, right? You don't have to grow it out in a field. Uh, you can make that in a lab, which is so deadly, and all the other substances that are so bad. And then you have the child trafficking, hundreds of thousands of them, and then they put this under NGOs that have a religious, um, a facade, a religious facade, and then they say you can't investigate us because first we want the 501c3. First we want, because we're so good, right? We're criminal trafficking and we're participating or facilitating it, but we're so good, we want 501c3. We want tax exempt. Of course they don't pay taxes on their criminal trafficking money. But we also, have contracts and stuff like that. We do side businesses and everything. Um, and so they don't want investigation. So they say, oh, there's a separation of church and state. There's a separation with the religious freedom. And that's what this whole thing is with the Annunciation House, which is ongoing. It's going to be very interesting what Attorney General Paxton finds now, because he won the case against this facade of an NGO to look at what they're doing. And I think, any church, you have the Waco incidents. They didn't hide under a facade of religion. If and that's I shouldn't, that was a bad example. But any religious organization that is participating and facilitating in crime, they're not immune from the law. They're not immune from investigations, right? Um, so this is, and if you want the 501c3, you have to be neutral. I don't really like the 501c3 at all. I don't think, this is just, okay, I'm going to go off on a little personal tangent. I don't think we should have the income tax because it's such a power over the people, and the 501c3 is such a power over any kind of charitable organization, right? It's such a power. They're still not separated. You can say, "Oh, I'm a church. I have a 501c3," but then you're still under the government because you have certain regulations that you have to follow. I'm just not in favor of it at all. I hope they get rid of the whole thing, and income tax, and I hope that the tariffs work, to run our country without having the income tax. I think it's such um, a very uh, uh, it's like slavery. It's like slavery. They own so many months out of your life, and if you don't pay those taxes, they can come with guns. And I just think it's just a terrible thing. But that's my opinion, and I'm disclosing that that's my opinion. But when it comes to Richard's case, evidence confirms. And I try to keep really without emotion, which is very, very difficult as a mother, knowing what they did to my son, what they did to him. And I absolutely want accountability, but I want it right. I want it right because the right way is the only way that we can get accountability for the others that have been so hurt in all of this, and that we can restrain this kind of criminality. You know, just screaming and beating your chest, is not going to do it. This has to be absolutely through the law and methodical and absolutely true to the law, so that it can set precedents, so that it can absolutely make a difference, so that it can make a difference. Because the way they were running Fort Bliss as a death camp, I mean, that's not my term, that's what they nicknamed it, right? The soldiers nicknamed it the death camp. And the barracks have been for years a mess, even so that we had a soldier that went over to Ukraine and then defected into Russia. So that just tells you the lack of esprit de corps, the lack of patriotism that was being instilled in our soldiers, the lack of the Medal of Honor ethos. And then you see Gema Xóchitl, the wife of First Sergeant Ruggiero. You see the whole chain of command of Richard, engaging in the most despicable activities, uh, is most criminal activities. And then it goes on up to the generals, that are absolutely, eyebrow deep in their very corrupt contracts, right? Their companies and contracts, and they are absolutely engaged in serving foreign and domestic enemies of the country and not defending the Constitution. Which, when you're aiding and abetting foreign and domestic enemies that are up to no good in your country, that's called treason. That's called treason. That's being a traitor. And they really went turbo against President Trump and their actions, what they did against him, and the false narratives. It was absolutely mutiny. They didn't even follow orders that were given to them by the commander in chief. You saw that with General Milley, who was engaging with the CCP, saying that he would notify them of any before so he was saying, I'm going to be a spy for you, and I'm the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I mean, that's if he's not arrested, he has to be arrested. And Kelly too. General Kelly, John Kelly, was over in Chihuahua, working for the governor there, the governor that is absolutely up to no good. And I don't think he disclosed that. And these individuals have secret clearances, right? And you have a Fort Bliss that's totally breached. And don't forget that General John Kelly was Southcom, and then also chief of staff for President Trump, who betrayed President Trump. I mean, it's just they just absolutely went mutiny on President Trump. And I think that they need to be held accountable for that, because if they do that to President Trump, they're doing it to the land and the people. Because this is our government. And we have approved that we want a president of the United States that is commander in chief of the military, that is a chief law enforcer, that is a chief magistrate. That's what we have voted for. That's what we want here in this country. And we have, traitors that are trying to take that away from us. And these traitors are not just some bum on a street. These are in our beautiful uniforms. These are wearing our beautiful stars. These are those that we have entrusted with millions and billions and trillions of dollars in the Pentagon, in Washington D.C., and they have betrayed us, and they have absolutely targeted our sons and daughters who are so vulnerable because they have given up their freedom to serve in our military, and they target them. They target them with the worst types of things and puts them in harm's way, in the crosshairs of the cartel. There's no doubt, because the evidence confirms it, y'all. The evidence confirms it. And it's just so shocking to say. Um, and this is why Richard was killed in the line of duty, why his remains were very mistreated, why the cover up and all the fraud that went along with the cover up. Okay, there was a lot of fraud and tampering and obstruction that went along with the cover up, and it's just shocking. Um, eh, you know, so sometimes I'm like, should I tell them everything? Should I tell them everything? Because you'll be like, no way, no way. And then when you see the evidence, uh, the Nidal Baem evidence, the family ties with the law enforcement, with the chief of police for El Paso ISD, with the Texas Ranger that was assigned to our case, with the command, Richard's command, when you see their connections with the LLCs, with the businesses, with the cartel, uh, with the cartel, it's just, it's it takes a little bit, it takes a while. I think it takes a while to absorb it, to come to admission, epistemological self consciousness, that this is really happening. It's like that movie, The Matrix. It's really hard to absorb reality that there was absolutely a mutiny going on, and that Richard was a whistleblower for this huge criminal trafficking that is absolutely leads to the acts of treason, and mutiny by our top our top brass that we have just been so respectful for, give everything to. We give them the best housing and service and vacations and pay and discounts and everything. We want our leaders to feel very, very loved by us, very taken care of by us. We want them to know that we have their back, and they betrayed us. They absolutely betrayed us and then targeted our sons and daughters, our country, our very, very, very precious, very, that sounds like Lord of the Rings, right? I shouldn't call it precious, but very valuable, very respectable, very honored Constitution of the United States with our Bill of Rights. It's so, so important, because that's what gives us our legal stand, in our freedom, our legal stand in our freedom. And they're attacking it, they're targeting it, and that's uh, it's just such an act of betrayal. So thank you so much for coming on And please, especially on a Sunday night, and please share this information. It's very, very important because we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you.